Hello and welcome to the fifth quarter. This will be a weekly video series that we do as part of the Two Homers and a Realist podcast productions. My name's Connor. I'm a proclaimed homer of the group. And to kick off this series, we get to cover an interesting one. We had OU win against Houston 16-12. Very odd score for the Sooners, I'd say. Nonetheless, we'll dive into a few things here, some of the negativity that surrounded that game, hopefully some of the positives, as few as I can really kind of count, that also came out of it. And we'll look ahead towards the Tulane game a little bit, what I expect to see, what I hope to see the Sooners improve on to hopefully get us on the right track as we head into SEC play in a couple of weeks. So to kick things off, if you would, we'll start just kind of we'll just kind of rip the Band-Aid off here, guys. Saturday was a painful night in what should have been a great celebration. Another night game in Norman, second one of the season out of 2 games total. We're not used to those. If you guys have been around, you know the 11 a.m. kickoffs in the Big 12 were kind of our calling card. But again, it should have been a celebration. Ode to Bud Wilkinson, had the amazing throwback uniforms. Picture here on the screen. You know, it's funny. It doesn't always seem to go very well when we go with the throwbacks. If you remember back to 2009, Texas Tech, we go with the beautiful, probably my favorite alternate uniform that OU's worn, the all whites. And what happens? We get killed by Texas Tech. Move to Saturday, second game of our inaugural season in the SEC. We're the awesome throwbacks again, red jersey with the beautiful white helmet with the red stripe down the middle. And what happens? We narrowly escaped the Houston Cougars. The same Houston Cougars, by the way, that just got beat by UNLV, giving up more than 200 rushing yards. It was rough, guys. It was a bad day. It was one of those wins that you leave the stadium and it doesn't feel like you won the game. Your record might say 2-0, but in your head, you're feeling like you're 1-1. Not a lot of good things, especially on the offensive side of the ball that we can really get into, and that we saw in the game on Saturday night. But before we really get started and talking through some of the things that I thought about, let me go ahead and just run you through some of the stuff that we thought directly after the game, some of the frustrations that we had as a group.
Two homers and a realist. Sooners win, believe it or not, 16-12 against Houston. What do you think?
Kind of that. I'm a little speechless. I don't have a lot to say. I think we're bad on offense. All the optimism I had coming out of the last game seems to not be realistic at all. So I'm trending on the side of pessimism on the offense, but we'll see what happens going forward.
Thankfully, the defense saved the day. The offense is horrible. Seth Luttrell looks like a bargain store Jeff Letty, and I don't know what can be salvaged from the season.
Yeah, it's actually, the whole thing is atrocious. The coaching, the decision-making, they're undisciplined players, and, you can't even say anything about the offense tonight.
Serious issues. We're going to cover it tonight on the pod. Boomer?
Sooner.
So as you can see, I think we covered it all. Quite literally, they flipped the video on and I couldn't even find words. I was beyond frustrated. And I think that's a feeling that we all have across the fan base right now. It's just general frustration. The lofty expectations that I have, the lofty expectations that the fan base has for this team, especially on the offensive side of the ball with a new quarterback, a new offensive coordinator, thinking and hoping that things would really kind of get off on the right foot. And we're not there. So a lot of things to get into here. Let's go ahead and take a listen to see what Brent said directly after the game.
Deserved to lose as well, but our guys did find a way. Great job on the defensive play to create the safety. Offense did a really nice job until, we lost our mind and didn't play with the discipline. We deserved to lose because we did everything you could possibly do to give somebody a chance to win. But they did find a way to win there. Great job by the D again there on that last drive to make them use the clock and again get off the field with a victory.
So Brent's postgame, I could not agree more with what he said. We deserved to lose that game on Saturday night. I think we did everything that a losing team does to let a lesser team come in and upset you at home early in the season. Whether it be the play calling, the lack of execution on third down, the seemingly completely disjointed offense that we had, Josh Bates ripping his helmet off at the end of the game when we pretty much could have sealed the deal on that drive, get a 15-yard penalty and give Houston the ball back with 35 seconds to go or something along those lines. Just everything that you could do and everything that you could think of to try to hand this to Houston, I feel like we really did. Regardless, we did get out of there with a victory. We did do the things at the end of the day that we needed to do to get a win. We are 2-0, but like I said, it really doesn't feel like it. So let's just jump into it. I think a lot of the criticisms that I'm about to get into and that I feel are shared, and we really broke down a lot of this on the rant, a worthy rant on our post-game podcast. So if you haven't listened to that, go give that a listen as well. I said it on the podcast, and we said it on the podcast, we'll say it again. You know, we may be beating a dead horse here, but it's a dead horse that's probably worth beating at this point because there just is so much wrong. It's really hard to just wrap your hands around a singular thought to identify the root cause, the root problem that we're facing here. So let's get into offensive coordinators. Seth Littrell, the play calling, the design. A lot of what we heard after the Temple game in week 1 was, oh, you know, a lot of this was planned. The short game was planned. We're not going downfield by design. Okay, that's fine. Houston rolls into town. I expect to see us open it up a little bit more, go down the field a little bit, have guys running open, hitting open receivers, having those gimme plays that we need to stay on schedule in drives, and it's not there. And whether you can defend it or not, and none of that is by design. You don't have guys not getting open by design. Everything seems so disjointed. There's a lack of cohesiveness across every position group on the offensive side of the ball, that is just the execution is not possible right now. That being said, let's go ahead and listen to what Seth Littrell had to say about the game. Just a quick thoughts from him.
Consistent, obviously. The game shows for itself. You know, in order to be a good offense, you have to be a consistent offense, be disciplined. You know, with the small details that it takes to finish off drives, and obviously, again, not near good enough on third downs. In those situations, you have to be able to move the chain and put yourself in this, position to have success. And unfortunately, we weren't able to again do that tonight. Put our defense in some bad situations, which is unfortunate. We got to be much better.
So again, a lot of coach speak here. I am glad that Seth knows that something's wrong and that he needs to be better and that the team needs to be better. Well, yeah, I think we all knew that. What are you going to do to make it better, though? Are we going to see some of the things that I just mentioned? Are we going to see some more high percentage plays where we're able to move the ball downfield? I have not seen a Sooner offense that stagnant since I think the 2022 OU Texas game, where we literally didn't have a quarterback, and Braden Willis is back there running an offense. It was such a mess. And I think it's beyond explanation at this point. And we can speculate all we want until we're blue in the face, but until we go out and do something on the field that shows us that there's something more that Seth is drawn up or that they're working on to get better, I'm not going to believe it. And I have a great deal of concern as we move closer and closer to SEC play. So with that being said, let's touch on the position groups real quick. Offensive line, same story, different week. If anything, it's a worse story than what we saw in week 1. We've regressed, I feel like. First half wasn't awful. Jackson had some time on a few plays where it looked like we actually might kind of be figuring it out a little bit, building a little bit of a pocket for him to work in. And then you get to late second quarter and then the rest of the game, and there's just nothing there. And I'm no offensive line expert. I have no experience in that part of the game, but I know when I see bad blocking, I know when I see missed assignments, and when there's 3 Houston guys in the backfield within a half a second of the ball being snapped. So something's not right. I'm sure there's plenty of people that could watch this and give a much better analysis of what we're doing and what we're not doing and what we should be doing. All I'm saying is something needs to be done to fix this. Whether it's if the schemes are too complex for these guys and you need to simplify it, if you're Bill Bedenbaugh, then do it. Do anything that's going to give your running backs time and your quarterback time to go make plays. Because right now we have neither of those things, and you have to have both of them to score points. And I think we all know points are what win football games. So I don't know. Bill has a lot of work cut out for him. I like the guy. I think he is a good coach. I know he faces a lot of criticism pretty consistently, and I've shown him a lot of grace, and I think the fan base has shown him a lot of grace. But we're running out of excuses at this point to say, oh, it's Bill Bedenbaugh. He'll get it worked out by the Texas game. We don't have that kind of time anymore. We're facing Tulane this week, who's not going to be a pushover. We're facing Tennessee the week after, who has one of the best, if not the best, defensive linemen in the country. We have Auburn on the road after that. If we don't get things figured out in within a matter of days, at least to some serviceable extent, we are going to be in for a very, very rude awakening in these next 3 weeks. And then you get Texas. Yeah, you have a bye week after Auburn, but you still get Texas. And Texas is rolling right now. So I'm worried. This is, I think, from a fan base perspective, this is the biggest worry for all of us. But it also just kind of flows into the whole rest of the offensive position grouping that we're about to get into. So naturally, let's move back to the running back group. As much as I want to really kind of sit and criticize the lack of production that we have seen from Sawchuk and from Barnes, it's really hard for me to, after what I just said about the offensive line. You're not going to have a lot of great production from your star running backs if they're getting hit in the backfield almost every single play, or if assignments are missed at the line of scrimmage and you're going for no gain pretty consistently. One of the most stark and revealing stats that I saw on Saturday after the game, causing me to quite literally refresh my phone multiple times to make sure I was reading it correctly, Gavin Sawchuk had 4 carries for 4 yards on Saturday. And for the RB1 at the University of Oklahoma, I have no words. I mean, that is one of the craziest stat lines I've ever seen. Another maybe criticism here is Tatum has a great kind of run in the opener against Temple, shows some promise and ability to kind of make things happen. I think he only gets in the game once or twice on Saturday. So I just don't know. It's so confusing to me, and we had questions in the running back rotation last year. I really hope we don't run into those again this year. But right now, there's a question mark there for sure. So we'll see what happens with that group, hoping for some improvement, and obviously that's going to go hand in hand with offensive line improvement as well. Let's get into Jackson Arnold and the wide receivers really quickly. So Jackson, again, new quarterback, stepping into a massive position as the QB at the University of Oklahoma. He hasn't really found his feet, I don't feel like. And I say that in a positive way, in a hopeful way that he will. But at the same time, you get to the second half of that game last week, and it really feels like a kid that just doesn't have the confidence that I think we saw a lot last year as he was the backup. And, maybe that goes hand in hand with him being the starter now and knowing that he has the job and it's his job to lose. But some of the throws, some of the decision making, some of the lack of progressions that he's making, it's just not, the execution has to be better there. I know we're expecting a lot from him as a sophomore quarterback in his second regular season start, but you are at the University of Oklahoma, and it's not too much for me to hope for it, and it's definitely not too much for me to expect it. And if it doesn't work out, let's start having a different conversation. And no, I'm not being one of those guys. I'm not calling for Michael Hawkins to come in and replace Jackson Arnold. Where I was last year calling for Jackson Arnold to replace Dylan Gabriel, whole different conversation. I might turn a lot of people off with that comment who are watching this video. We can get into that on some other time. But no, I have confidence in Jackson. But again, it's one of those things. Your window's closing here. You've got to really find the rhythm that you need with your wide receiver group, with your offensive coordinator, with your offensive line to start executing plays and being more efficient. And then lastly, the wide receiver group. I cannot say with enough emphasis how much we need some veteran presence, some Oklahoma veteran presence in that group. Right now, our biggest threat is, Deion Burks running over the middle 6 yards down the field, hoping he catches the ball and making something happen. I mean, there's been no threat downfield. There's been no getting behind defenses. Brennan Thompson, frankly, for me, has been a disappointment. The guys who are trying to step in the shoes of Farouk, the J.J. Hesters, the Reagans of the wide receiver room, have left me empty-handed. We need Nick Anderson, we need Andrel Anthony, and we need some threatening players who can go and make something happen off the ball and go get open. And that's one of the biggest pet peeves I've had right now. We're just not getting open. I mean, and none of that's by design. Again, you're not going to ever tell me that guys are purposely being covered and we're trying to make throws tough on Jackson Arnold to see if he can execute them. There's no way. So a lot of this goes back to the offensive play calling, in my opinion, and the scheming that we're doing. I just want to see some efficiency. I want to see some high percentage plays where we can go and say, it's 2nd and 7. I know that we can get 5 yards because we can run a sit down route and, for 4, and then maybe we're going to go get another 6 or 10 after that on the yards after catch. So again, I'm keeping this pretty high level, and it is a bit of a venting session, but nonetheless, I do think all of this are things we do have to improve upon because the road gets a lot tougher starting this week. And again, I'm not going to discount Tulane one bit after what I've seen from us the last 2 weeks. So quickly here, let's touch on the defense. The shining light, I think the positive of this whole thing is the defense does well again. The defense carries the team and essentially wins that game for us. You have one busted play that leads to a touchdown early in the third quarter, but then the defense steps up and they don't let that busted play turn into the snowball effect that we've seen so many times in the past where our defense just kind of falls apart after giving up that first big play. So again, I think room for improvement. Some of the rotation decisions are weird to me. Danny not being in there on some critical drives had me asking some questions. Running man coverage on the last drive of the game where Houston has to go get a touchdown. They're inside their own 10-yard line, and we're playing man coverage instead of just playing prevent defense and making them go score. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me. But again, putting some trust in the coaching staff and Zach Alley and Brent Venables, there must be some method to their madness. Cannot highlight Grayson Halton enough. That dude has played lights out the last 2 weeks and then comes up with arguably the biggest play of the game with the safety that forces Houston to have to go get a touchdown on the last drive. A huge play. And to go be put in the position that the defense was put in and having to defend a potential field goal from Houston if they do go drive down the field. Houston probably wins that game if they get a field goal on that drive where we get the safety. Just with where the clock sat there. So great job by the defense. Want to see some just continuous progression there. Like I said early in the video, I think we are on our way to becoming that elite defense that we are hoping and expecting to be under Brent Venables. That's really it, guys. So a lot of complaints. I'm looking forward to the Tulane game in the sense that I'm looking forward to seeing improvements. I'm concerned about the Tulane game because I felt the same way going into Houston, and we looked much worse than we did in week 1. So it'll be a test, and I think it'll be a great primer for us heading into Tennessee. Tulane's going to be a hot game. I think 2:30 game. It's going to be around 100 degrees, so we'll see how the team responds to that. First hot day game of the year. Nonetheless, we are 2-0. It may not feel like it, but the Sooners are 2-0. Tulane this week, hoping to go 3-0, moving into SEC play with the big game against Tennessee coming up just around the corner. I'll be back next week with another breakdown of the Tulane game and then looking forward to the Tennessee game. Hope to see you guys here. Until next time, Boomer, Sooner.